Welcome to Fat Dads. On this episode, we discuss Spider-Man No Way Home. We talk about some of the plot holes, what we liked, what we didn't like, the different characters, and we have our best and worst.
Yeah, we also talk about who is the best Spider-Man. There are three options, the three that are perfectly good, but which one is best?
All this and more on this episode of Bad Dads.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bad Dads Podcast.
Welcome back to the Fad Dads Podcast. I'm Nathaniel.
And I'm Seth.
And this is our podcast where we talk about movies and television, kind of whatever we want. But today,
a lot of movies.
Yeah, a lot of movies. And today we are talking about a very special movie, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Woo, buddy!
All right, so to get into it right away, this movie I was incredibly hyped for. One of the few movies that I didn't want to know anything about. I locked myself home, turned off the internet, no trailers. I tried to stay away from posters, and just try to isolate myself because of how hyped I was for this movie.
Yeah, that's right. I sat down to write just a little spoiler-free review. Is it okay if it's going to sound like I'm reading it, but I kind of wrote it out, and I'll go with it. Yeah, so Spider-Man No Way Home is a classic, and it's a pop culture smash for the next decade. I think it's a generational film. All right, okay, I'll let that simmer. It's a Spider-Man movie that said, according to the track records of Spider-Man movies, putting multiple villains into films, such as Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, broke them in such a way that those movies are regarded as trash. So what we're going to do is pick up all the pieces of all the previous Spider-Man villains, and on the top of that, we're going to add two more Spider-Men and Doctor Strange. And the hand of Kevin Feige passed over the movie script, and he said, "Let it be so." And the movie has surpassed all expectations, smashing box office records, proving once and for all it wasn't COVID that ruined the theaters. It was indeed the despicable films coming out of Hollywood that ruined theaters. You need to see Spider-Man No Way Home.
All right.
That is it.
My spoiler-free review would be, you've already seen this movie.
Yeah.
Let's just dive in and enjoy the conversation here.
All right, take it away, Nathaniel. Where do you want to start?
This movie was really good. This movie's long, but I enjoyed almost every minute of it.
It had to be. It had to be long because of how much they tried to fit into it. And I feel like I love the Amazing Spider-Man series, but that was an issue with the Amazing Spider-Man 2, was they tried to have three villains, and they didn't give adequate time to any of them because it was missing stuff. And so, if they only had one villain and they gave him more time to develop that character, it probably could have been a lot better. And so this movie, with all of the characters that it had, and it even gave stories to the Spider-Man pulled in from other universes, it needed 3 hours.
Yeah. There's no question. I feel like this movie is getting a lot of love, and
rightly so.
Right, cards on the table. I think that the Amazing the Spider-Man trilogy, Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, which I saw two of the movies in the theater, Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. Also really hyped for both of those movies when I watched them. Spider-Man 2 did not disappoint. We'll get into that a little later, I'm sure. Spider-Man 3, kind of a mixed bag. I think I like it more than most people. But those movies have been extremely influential on me as a filmmaker, right? When we did kind of our television pilot. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, that style influenced our filmmaking of that story more than any other piece of cinema. So it holds a very special piece in my creative heart, and as a fan as well, being a Spider-Man fan. And I know that can be kind of a dangerous place to be because you can feel like you have ownership of a property, and whenever you see that property and characters from that regurgitated, you can always feel a little bit, you didn't do it right, that sort of thing. And
well, in that respect, especially with Tobey Maguire's character. They didn't really mess with it at all. They pulled the characters out of their timeline, kind of. Doc Ock from when the reactor blew up. You kind of get to see what would have happened if he stayed alive for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, was that it? Who else?
Well, certainly the Green Goblin. They picked him out of his
Right,
timeline.
yeah, the Green Goblin, and
Sandman picked him out.
Sandman, that was the other one. So, but as for Peter Parker, the Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker, didn't the story that we see from him, it was kind of, that was a story we hadn't seen before, right?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like after the events of Spider-Man 3,
That's right.
Years after that.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. That's one of the continuity errors in the movie, I think. But there's so many errors in this film, and you kind of have to go. It's a movie where you go with it, and that's what makes the movie work. It's like, and I don't think that this would work maybe with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, but with this movie, it's got so much going on that as an audience member, you're just going with it. You're just going with it, rolling with the punches, rolling with. Would that character really do that? Would this really happen? I don't know, but I'm having a good time. I don't care.
Yeah. There's quite a few of those, weren't there?
Yeah, and it's okay. And I think like we talked about Free Guy, that movie's certainly not perfect. And there are certain movies that, as long as they hit a certain level of, this movie is good enough, you overlook nitpicks.
Yeah.
Versus if the movie is not enjoyable to watch, all those things that irritate you just kind of stand out even more so. And it's like, oh, I really don't like that.
Yeah. I believe it.
So I think for this movie, for me, is after watching it, and I've thought about this a while, still to this day, since when I saw it almost a week ago, I get the sense that what if is what I keep asking myself, because this is not the Spider-Man movie that I wanted to see. And I think they could have made the Spider-Man movie that I wanted to see. And so I have to kind of appreciate what the writers did here, with also balancing out with, like, I feel like there's a missed opportunity here. And I think part of that is that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse ruined the opportunity for a good movie here.
Really?
Well, the movie that I wanted to see.
Okay, elaborate.
All right, so in Spider-Man the Spider-Verse, you have Miles Morales is kind of thrown in. You know, he gets bitten by a radioactive spider. He has Spider-Man's powers. Right, there's a big reactor that blows up, killing the original Spider-Man, but also bringing in other Spider people from different dimensions. One of those Spider-Man people is basically Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. 10 years removed from Spider-Man 3, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of have his beer belly. He's rooted his relationship with MJ. And he takes kind of this mentorship role, although not that great, to Miles Morales. And that's what I really want to see in this movie, where instead of Doctor Strange, like, Doctor Strange can facilitate the movie, but I didn't think he was amazing in this movie. He was just angry a lot.
He was there. He had to be there to set up the multiverse. The multiversal aspect.
Right, but then he kind of shows up and yells at Peter a bunch more and has to get locked away in the multiverse. And I understand the reason for that, but I want, as soon as that spell is done, I want Tobey Maguire in there right away. Mentoring new Tom Holland. And then 30 minutes after that, I want Andrew Garfield in there right away. Because I think what we ended up seeing was a story that was more focused on the villains than all those other Spider-Man movies, and giving them the redemption arcs that they should have gotten. Like, for example, they gave a lot of time to Electro, redeeming his terrible characterization in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was fine, but I think Andrew Garfield is really the one who needs
which he got
redemption.
One too. He got one. He got a little redemption arc too.
A little bit, and it felt good, but that I care less about the villains and more about both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield getting another chance to shine.
That's true. Let me ask you about those villains, because Doctor Strange, you hear him saying that death is their destiny. And what do you think about that concept? That Peter had the decision to send them back, which probably would have resulted in their death. But instead, the movie does try to give them a redemption arc, like you're saying. What do you think that says about, like, death? Like, because when I was watching the movie, I was like, no, I'm not with Peter at all. I'm with Doctor Strange. Like, those people made their choices. You're kind of messing with what is supposed to happen by not letting that happen. Like all you're doing is putting it back the way it's supposed to be, the way they made their choices and such.
Right, and all of them had a chance to make their choices, right? Doc Ock makes the redemptive choice, even if it ends up with his doom.
Right.
Right, he does make the decision. And it gets a little bit weird, the timeline of it. So, right, that's another issue that I have with the movie. And you can't think about it too much, because Dr. Octopus, he makes the right decision at the same time when he finds out that Peter Parker is actually Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2. So it's this weird place to be in where, okay, he is only drawn through the multiverse because he knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but at that point in the movie, he's less angry and willing to cooperate with Peter. So it doesn't quite work. That's why you kind of have to go with it, right? You just go with it, and the movie works. But it's kind of it's just an odd point. Like, did he have to be saved at that point?
Yeah.
In No Way Home, and also it totally ruins continuity. Like, what happens if you save Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, and send him back? What happens to Spider-Man 2 and 3? That messes the timeline radically.
Right. So, well, yeah, and so that's part of it. Also, is the multiverse, right? Which is kind of set up in Loki, that there is now a possibility for the multiverse. So, do you think that, like, as soon as Doctor Strange, he makes that rift, and then suddenly the villains start popping up, the time police show up and wipe everything?
Right.
Is that? Do you think that would have happened? But because there's no longer the time police, that this is allowed to happen, and that these are just now creating new branches. So when they're sent back to their universes, it's just a new branch.
But those universes should have been culled anyway, right? Because there's one sacred timeline.
Right, so we're in the theoretical sacred timeline, but now there's the branches.
But what
that all like?
But when do those branches exist? I guess is what I'm saying. Because when, like, those for the multiverse to work, those branches have to coexist in some sort of a parallel universe. Yeah. Instead of in the sacred timeline, right? So it can't be condensed. So you kind of have to live. That universe must already kind of, I don't know. It's weird, right? It gets really weird, really heady fast, and no, because. Go ahead.
You can't have other dimensions. Like, they don't all have to be part of the because the sacred timeline is just a concept of, like, all of the strands of time and all the other dimensions just going in one direction. So they're not coinciding and they're not clashing, and they don't. You can't have people hopping from dimension to dimension doing all that stuff,
right? Because that would create rifts in wherever they go,
right? And so when Loki kills what's his face, it just splays out, and so now you can jump in between, and it all becomes a jumbled mess again.
Right.
And so
but based on that, the issue is, and we talked about the multiverse before and how the multiverse theory doesn't really work, but the if it does work, there is an infinite amount of choices that these villains could make, have made in different universes, right? And just because they made a terrible decision in one doesn't mean that Peter couldn't have helped them in another universe,
right?
Right. Norman Osborn, kind of a bad guy anyway. Honestly, with or without the Goblin Serum. Yeah. And by the way, as an aside, Willem Dafoe also crushes it in this movie too, as the Green Goblin.
Always.
Love him. So creepy, so excellent. And right, I'm not trying to. I think this movie just right. This is going to be nitpicking, but I really, really do like the movie. I think it is actually really good. So the things that negative I'm saying about it, I do enjoy the movie quite a bit.
Yeah. It's wholly enjoyable. There's nitpicking things to be had, and one of mine, and maybe you can help me with this if you know a little bit more in depth about the comics, but at the end, I wasn't so sure that I was on board with the last minute, what if you just make everyone forget about me in the entire world? Then what? Will this problem go away? Yes. How? Wait, how is that going to save you from these cosmic beings that are entering the rifts in the sky? Like,
because it makes them forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man in those dimensions too, which would probably have huge ramifications in those universes.
Okay, interesting.
I think that's what they're getting at, but that's real weird.
Maybe so, but you don't see them forget and turn away and go away. They're just gone. So I thought that, like, so I was confused if it was like they're coming for you because, and that's the other thing. I wasn't sure why they were there. Like, Because everyone knows you're Spider-Man? They're coming for you because of that? Is that why?
Yeah, I don't know if they're coming for him, because that's also what drew in the Peter Parkers too, right? It drew all the people who knew he was Spider-Man. And since the multiverse is infinite, it would have an infinite number of people who would come in.
Including the cosmic beings, I guess?
Look, the multiverse theory, it doesn't make sense. just go with it.
Okay, sorry. I just saw that and I was like, wait 1 second, and the movie did not wait. It just kept going. He threw his spell and they were just gone, and I was like, wait, and then I kind of just went with it. Yeah. But maybe you can help me.
Here's how I would have liked to have seen in this fictional movie that I've created in my mind that Peter Parker already learned this lesson. In Spider-Man 2, which I think is maybe the best superhero movie of all time. I don't know. It's really good. I just watched it again a couple weeks ago. It is so good.
The Sam Raimi one,
where he goes up against Dr. Octopus. Incredible. Hits all those emotional beats, and they're not using a lot of flashy CGI. But that movie just kills it on a story level. Talk about an amazingly well-designed plot as well. As I'm watching it, I go, wow, this movie is so well-designed. Okay, anyway. But he learns that, right, he has these dreams that he wants, and at one point he decides that I'm going to chase these dreams and give up being Spider-Man. But that's not his role to play in the world, because he does have this responsibility because of the powers that he has. And so, and you see Tom Holland Spider-Man kind of going through the same crisis. He's like, I really wanted to go to MIT. I really want my friends to have good lives. Like, I wish I did the Spider-Man burden didn't affect me. It didn't affect them. But it's not really the way it goes, right? For any of us, honestly. We can't just go, right, I have kids, you're married. We can't just say, hey, look, I know I have these responsibilities and these duties, but I really just want to do my own thing. First of all, it's not satisfying to do that, and second of all, it's not good for society, our friends, or family. If we do that. And so Peter Parker already learned that lesson. And what a great and the nice thing about Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is he's so mild, he's so meek. He has definitely that Uncle Ben flair that if he was mentoring somebody, he wouldn't beat it down your throat. He wouldn't be angry like Doctor Strange, but he would try to mentor Tom Holland in a graceful way. And then I think at that point, Tom Holland isn't making like a decision to save the universe. He's making a decision that says, you know what, this is actually the right thing. This is the responsible thing to do. Is to undo the damage that I've caused. And I guess that's.
I see what you're saying, and I felt that I felt it more when he decided not to go back to Ned and MJ at the end. When he decided not to try to kick that relationship back up, because it hits all of those things that you were saying, that he wants to be like with MJ and be friends with Ned and go with him to MIT, which he probably could have done, but he also understands that him being just around them was a serious detriment to them, and if he loves them truly, it's better for them not to know him.
I'm not sure that that's entirely fair, because I think autonomy dictates that they make that decision. I think because we also see the cruelty of striking people's memories of Ned and MJ, that they actually live less fulfilled lives because their memory is wiped. And we see this, and we talked about Free Guy, where his memory is wiped, and the life that he lives is less fulfilled. It also is less fulfilling to other people in his city, because he helps all those people in the city with the knowledge and the abilities that he's able to overcome by not being just an average guy. And so I think, we can look down on that and say, oh, he's making such a compassionate decision. It's like, maybe they should be able to make that decision. In fact, they did, and they embraced it. And so you actually see them going, you know what, we stand by you. We wish you would have included us in before you started wiping people's, making the decision to wipe people's spells minds in the first place with the spell, that we want to be involved in this because we're on Team Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, he saw how it affected them, and I liked how it was like the same scene where he was in when they all got rejected to MIT at the beginning of the movie, when it all got started, and how he saw that even though they made that decision, he sees that them knowing Spider-Man eventually could ruin their lives. And it killed Aunt May eventually. Kind of.
Uh,
By the decision
I
that
would
he
say
made.
Aunt May killed Aunt May. In the sense that you brought the Green Goblin into your house. What do you think was going to happen? Right? Honestly, right? She takes the side of Peter that was like, oh yeah, we can help these guys, no problem. You know, nothing bad can possibly go wrong invading 5 supervillains into our condo, right? And there were clearly not the checks and balances that needed to be there, the safeguards. And Peter acts as a stupid teenager, locks Doctor Strange away, goes, I can take care of all of this myself. The hubris is what got Aunt May killed, not her knowing that he's Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That aside, okay, perhaps you're correct. That aside, so Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he sees his influence of him knowing his friends knowing Spider-Man, the detriment that is to them. And they love him, and they loved him before they knew he was Spider-Man. So that's, like, yes, that's obviously what they're going to say, but he knows it's not good for them because it puts them in danger. And that was like the whole lesson that Andrew Garfield learned with his girlfriend.
Well, he did his best to keep her at bay, and
he didn't do it. He didn't do it. But
also in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, he basically made Green Goblin a villain by saying, "No, I'm not going to give you my blood. It's too dangerous.
I don't like needles."
Even though it's like, what have I got to lose as the Green Goblin? Like Harry Osborn, what have I got to lose? I'm gonna die from this anyway. I might as well take experimental drugs. And Spider-Man's like, maybe we should wait a while. And I'm not saying that he has license to become like a hairy, hobgoblin.
Yeah.
but Andrew Garfield made some dumb rear-end decisions in that movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was something else. Yeah, but I sympathize with Tom Holland's decision. That one in particular. I don't sympathize with his decision to let all the villains go and try to fix them. Not that, but his decision to not come back to MJ and to Ned. I could see where he would shy away from that. And I felt the emotional weight of that scene much more than the emotional weight of his decision when he was saying goodbye to them and saying, you know what, I'm going to decide to wipe everyone's memory.
Yeah. Because I think at that point you see how much he's lost.
Yeah.
And I think it rings true. I don't know if you ever had the experience of having lost friendship or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's not quite the same. Your mind isn't wiped, but you still mourn the loss of a friendship or a relationship. Yeah. And it's you feel like I wish things were different. I wish they were back the way they were. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's for the right reason that relationship or friendship no longer exists, or maybe not. But those are hard things. Yeah. And right, he lives a great life at the start of the movie. Well, maybe not at the start of the movie because he's an outlaw, but he lives a really good life. And at the end of the movie, he lives kind of a crummy life, kind of the life that Peter Parker from the comics is always destined to live, right? That's the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Everything goes wrong for him. Everything. He lives in a crummy apartment. He's late on rent. His girlfriend doesn't know why he's a loser. And, right, his best friend's after him. Everything goes wrong. And this Tom Holland, right? Tom Holland Spider-Man, he's handsome, he's cool, he's smart, he's in a really good school, he's got a chance to go to MIT, he's got spider powers. Everything goes right for the Spider-Man until the very end, which
I deep down I know that they're probably gonna make another one and it's probably gonna resolve itself.
Yeah.
But actually, I think this is kind of an obvious plot hole, but what do you think about that whole disappearing thing at the end where it seems kind of unfeasible that someone would not remember Peter Parker? So, like, the spell must have removed all pictures that MJ had with him and Ned.
It's magic, Seth. It's magic.
and records.
Never believe it's not so.
Something something further is that my wife Dania, she noticed that when he goes into his apartment, he actually has a GED book.
Yes. So
he wasn't able to graduate high school, so it erased his high school records, right? And like, what do you? That just seems so weird. So he has no identity, no social security number.
Yep.
He's just gone.
Just gone.
So how does he get a job or anything? How does he reestablish an identity in the society?
Just come over the border. What's the problem?
But it's so weird because I think that our friendships and our relationships with other people, they're so much more than just the one-on-one relationship. It's also societally, someone else because of your connection with somebody else, right? And so it just seemed like, and that was actually pointed out when he talked to Happy at Aunt May's grave. How did you know her? Through Spider-Man? Yeah, through Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure Happy knew it was Peter Parker before he knew he was Spider-Man. So it
doesn't work. Just go with it. I mean, honestly, it's magic, and I remember this exact same thing. Thinking those things like, how does this work now? It seems like it doesn't work. And it's one of those. It's like, just gonna go with it.
So actually, that was in my head, and I was gonna say the same thing as you. But right before we started this podcast, I was flipping through some of my suggested stories through my Google phone or whatever, and there was an article about the writer's response to that question. What happened and why? And it's kind of interesting what they say, I think. No Way Home writers Eric Summers and Chris McKenna suggest that the answers to those questions are something future Spider-Man storytellers will have to deal with.
Wow.
We decided, let's try to do it with the most satisfying way and just focus on the emotion of it, Summers recently told Variety. And then, if people have questions about some of those details that didn't get answered here, we'll answer them hopefully in another movie somewhere down the line.
Wow. Okay, wow. There's a clinical term for this where
laziness.
Exactly. It's like, okay, well, it's not laziness. It's that, look, I know I'm going to be gone, but the next time this goes around, you see this with like in sports all the time. You'll have a lame duck general manager. Or in politics, lame duck president. They'll make a decision. They'll pardon, like, on the last day of office, they'll pardon like 50 people. And they're like, you know what? These guys could commit murder 5 years down the road, but it won't matter because I won't be president. So I'm right. I mean, they'll make these decisions because they know they won't be around to deal with the consequences of it. And I think this is what happened a little bit with this movie, because at the end of Far From Home, right, his identity is revealed, and it looks like he killed Mysterio.
Yeah.
And this I think is a messed step, because the first 20 minutes is almost completely irrelevant to the rest of the movie, right? There's that cop who comes and arrests them all and interrogates him. Like, where did he go? Like, why was he even in the movie? Because he doesn't make another appearance. Maybe he's in some deleted scenes. I don't know. But I feel like you could almost cut that entirely out. Make the movie shorter. And it has no bearing on the plot. Yeah, we get to see Charlie Cox as Daredevil, sort of, but it's like...
That's fun, yeah.
I don't know. It could have been a better movie, I think, if they could have streamlined that. And it seemed like that they're picking up the pieces left from the prior movie. It was like, hey, let's just end this in a way that the future writers have to solve. I don't know. I feel like they could have done...
It sets up the premise, yeah.
But they have to go through so much... there's a screenwriting term for it that Blake Snyder said. It was laying down the pipe so that you can get to the story that you want to tell. And if you have, the more pipe you have to lay down, the more you have to, as a viewer, go, okay, when is this movie actually going to start? Because the movie actually starts when he goes to see, Doctor Strange to solve the problem. And like that could have happened a lot sooner, I think, except they had to deal with so much stuff. They had to clean up the mess made by the writers from the previous movie. And that's a problem, I think, when you have this mentality of, we'll just fix this in the other movie.
Yeah, because then in the next movie they're gonna have to find a way, because MJ and Spider-Man, they're going to end up together. They always do. That's like their thing. So they're gonna have to find a way to make that all happen again.
Right.
So I agree. It's gonna happen.
And waste time
doing that,
right? And this movie I think cost $200 million, which is kind of, I thought would have cost more, but
wow.
So that's a lot of money. And if you think about it, if you break it down per minute, that's $1 million per minute. But now, right, they have to spend $10 million or maybe $15 million rectifying the mistake. Honestly, right? That's what they're going to have to pay just to fix this.
Yeah. I totally see what you're saying. And it's so funny that you point that cop out again, because you were saying, what happened to that cop? And I completely forgot. I forgot he existed until now. It's like, oh yeah, it seemed like he was going to be a character, and all this stress, it seemed like he was going to have a bigger role, and he was going to come back, and like, but no, he was gone.
Yeah,
he gone,
totally gone. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally see what you're saying now, and yeah, that's something that I just forgot. I guess because the movie was so long, you get so invested in the story.
Yeah. Well, the movie I think does a really good job of just moving you along, and I think the price that you pay is you definitely lose stuff along the way because it's not this well-designed story. It's the story that's designed to get you to the next high almost, which is right. We're all at a downer when Aunt May dies. And then, okay, now it's time to pull the rabbit out of the hat. And this is what really frustrated me is because they introduced Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire at virtually the same time.
Yeah.
And I felt like that robbed them of individual moments that they could have had if they had appeared at different times. And it just like, come on, we could have given more respect to these characters. And one thing that really bummed me out is this is going to be the send-off for those characters. I don't think we're ever going to see them in cinema again. And I think their importance could have been better, right? You mentioned that Andrew Garfield, especially when he saved MJ falling off the building, that was good. That's a nice bit of redemption for that character after Sony took a dump on that franchise.
Yeah, right.
But still, kind of a missed opportunity because I feel like they really could have, because there was always supposed to be a fourth Sam Raimi Spider-Man until the studio, messed that up.
Right.
And so they could have cleaned up that mess a little bit more, and Andrew Garfield's mess. But I think just including them a little bit more in the movie, a little bit sooner, and having it just feel less about, okay, this is the time we're going to bring them out. 3/4 in the movie,
and the fact that Ned had to do it.
Yeah,
I don't buy that.
Yeah, that was really lame. Like, wouldn't it be better if Spider-Man, if Tobey Maguire? Like, I mean, this could have been any number, and this is why I ask myself, what if about this movie a lot.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't you have done this? You could have, instead of Peter moping on top of the school, he could have been looking for the Green Goblin trying to exact his revenge, and then Tobey Maguire catches up to him for the first time, and then Peter goes like, "Who are you?" As opposed to I don't care about Zendaya and Ned Leeds interacting with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. I care about the Spider-Mans interacting with each other.
Yeah, I agree. But I did really like how they took the time to incorporate them into the movie and incorporate their stories and their arcs and not make it feel like they're just like an Easter egg that was kind of left on.
Yeah,
right. I think that was really good how they...
Charlie Cox as Daredevil.
Yeah.
That was definitely like
a little
an
extra
Easter egg.
stuff.
Yeah.
I liked it. I would have really liked to have seen him. And we've been talking about that ever since Civil War, right? Ever since Civil War, there was speculation that they were going to bring in a couple of the Marvel TV show characters for Civil War, which could have used it, but that's another discussion. But yeah, I like how they did that for those characters and they like the shared experiences and there was some of that mentorship that you're talking about from Tobey Maguire, especially at the end when he kept Peter from killing the Green Goblin, exacting his revenge.
Yep.
I thought he was going to do when he got stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, gosh, Tobey Maguire's dying now.
Yeah, right.
But I also felt like it was super fan servicey, almost a little bit too much. Especially some of the discussions that they were having. Yeah. About the web shooters.
Yep. Yeah,
that was awkward.
I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
but I agree. It did feel very fan service. And what I didn't like it is the reason I didn't like it as much as I would have wanted to like it. Like I enjoyed it, right? Don't get me wrong. It is when they're all three of them together, it just feels like it's a little bit less emotionally drained versus if it's just a one-on-one. Because Toby's learned some things that Andrew hasn't learned, and Andrew's learned some things that Tobey hasn't learned, and they kind of they're robbed a little bit of their individuality, I think, by always forcing those two characters to be in the same room with each other, and not with Tom Holland.
Yeah,
and right, I'm not trying to take away Tom Holland's story from his own movie, but Tom Holland's going to get more movies. They're done. Yeah. I doubt this is going to be the final send off, and I just wish it was a little bit sweeter than it was. It was sweet, but like I said, I just wonder could it have been better? And I think a lot of movies that I really like have really airtight narratives to where you're not going what if that or what if this? It's like, this is the way the movie had to happen. There really isn't any other thing, there really isn't any other way it could have gone except for this way. And that, I think that's a good mark. That's a mark of a good movie. Whereas this movie, everything that happened was very enjoyable, but could it have been made better?
I mean, there's room for improvement there, for sure.
But because I think, especially after watching Spider-Man 2, and I go, what an airtight narrative, very emotionally resonant, and wouldn't change a thing. Maybe a thing here or there, like tiny things, but it's so good. And I think you mentioned fan service. I think this movie is not going to hold up compared to Spider-Man 2 because it is entirely reliant on everything that has come before. Whereas you can watch Spider-Man 2 and it still holds up today.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, and it's you use this word that I think is pretty good when we were talking about Free Guy, and it was it's self-aware. The movie is kind of self-aware of itself, and it's aware also of the other Spider-Man movies in a way that was okay, and they had most of the characters figure out most of those plot devices naturally. Like the fact that all of them were going to die, they kind of all pieced it together just by talking to each other and felt natural. But like when the Spider-Men were talking and Andrew Garfield was like, yeah guys, I feel like I am not awesome, and then Tobey Maguire goes, no, you're amazing. You're amazing. Like the movie is very aware of what it's doing,
right?
And that took me a little bit out of it.
Yes,
there some of those lines
Yeah, no, I think so. But I think there's, and this kind of gets into the best and worst of the movie, but one thing that I think they hit on really well, and it was the marriage of the old and the new. And so my best for this movie is definitely Jane Jonah Jameson and the Daily Bugle.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is this, they didn't lean, it was kind of soft persecution that occurred in the Sam Raimi trilogy, whereas in the comics, he really goes after Spider-Man in a huge way. And I felt like this version of J. Jonah Jameson was, man, Spider-Man, he's Donald Trump, or he's Barack Obama, like just, evil incarnate. And, went after them hard, did the whole investigative journalism type thing to uncover where he was and get all the bad stuff about him.
Yeah.
All while incorporating it into this new, online media type format where, he's in this small studio with a green screen behind him. And I felt like what a great marriage of the old and the new to produce a really satisfying experience. And J.K. Simmons kills it as JJ.
I'm glad they brought him back.
Yeah,
he's
I am
great.
too. Yeah,
he looks like him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's I mean, of many things that really works in this movie, that's my best for the movie, for sure.
Yeah, my best. Like the writers, I was a little bit lazy, but my best of this film was the 12 seconds that we had of Wong. Always comes and never stays long enough.
By the way, for the listeners, I'm just going to give a preview of the best of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Seth's best is also Wong.
Yeah, we've seen Wong now, and he was in Shang-Chi. Did we have him in anything else other than Shang-Chi leading up to this and the Spider-Man?
Well, Infinity War. And,
yeah, that's right. He was
in Endgame.
And then obviously Doctor Strange. So he's been building up, and he's up to something, man. He's up to something. Who was his side gig that he had with him in Spider-Man? Didn't he have like a helper with him or something?
I don't know. Or
was it just him? Yeah. He's going around. He's doing something. I think I need to go back and watch because when he pulled Shang-Chi out of the bar. He's always going off on these little side quests doing something. He showed up in the arena. He was fighting the dude in that fight club in Shang-Chi.
Okay, so this is my interpretation of that is the actor who plays Wong, right? Kind of like Anthony Mackie in Ant-Man. It was like, who's the cheapest Avenger we can hire for this role? All right, we're just gonna hire you.
You're ruining it, Nathaniel.
Yeah. It's like, Benedict Cumberbatch, how much can we get you to be into Shang-Chi for just a minute? Oh man, okay, all right. Who's next on the list?
Mr. Wong. You might be right, but I like to believe that it is building up to something, and it will probably be in Doctor Strange.
All
right. Let's get into our worsts. Nathaniel, what is your worst of The Amazing Spider-Man?
All right, my worst is maybe nitpicking here. Of course, nitpicking. Is the soundtrack. it's reliable, but the problem is that as long as they were milking the nostalgia, and they actually had a little bit of the Doctor Strange theme, a little bit of the Doc Ock theme, definitely light. Like I remember, there's only one point that I can recall where they played Danny Elfman's Spider-Man theme for Tobey Maguire, and it was very subtle, like when he went up to confront Sandman or Dr. Octopus. Like it was really, really, really quite brief. Same thing with James Horner's score for Andrew Garfield.
Okay.
Really brief. It's like, hey guys, if you're going for fan service, go for broke, man. Cue up that music. And also, there's the classic Spider-Man theme, Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And they play that heavily during the marketing, but for some reason, it's not in the score of the movie. It's like, there's nothing that's going to get fans' blood pumping more than hearing that with an awesome orchestral, arrangement. And so, it's like, the soundtrack was a little disappointing because I wish they would have incorporated some more of those callbacks in there.
Okay.
Yeah, but how about you?
That's
What's your worst?
My worst was that magical fabrication box. Man, oh man, I thought that was kind of a cheap plot device where I'm gonna save all the villains and we're gonna change that. And I was in the theater like, how are you gonna do that? And Tony Stark strikes again. He got a magical box that can make anything. And did I talk to you about the real life Iron Man? The YouTube Simply Made Here. Did you get to check that guy out?
No, not yet.
Okay, so
it's on the list.
Yeah, so basically he has this awesome workshop where he has every type of machine. He could make anything out of anything because he's got like all the CNC machines to make parts, and he's got a 3D printer, and he makes some really cool stuff. He makes robots. It's so cool, but he needs like a whole workshop to do it. They have this tiny little box that looks like it's no bigger than a kitchen oven, a washing machine. And he made the device that would totally shut Electro down with like a tap of the button.
Right.
He made a brand new computer chip that fixed Dr. Ock. What else? They had to scheme up the Green Goblin anti-serum inside of the high school laboratory, but yeah, I'm willing to wave that aside for this Tony Stark MacGuffin. Yeah. That's my worst.
You're not wrong, right? Their method of explaining it is one bit of foreshadowing. Hey, look, there's this really cool box. We don't know what it does. Spoiler alert, anything. It's like, this is the lazy, right? You talk about a lazy best. This is a lazy worst for the writers. A really big low. Hard agree.
Wow.
On your worst.
That reminds me of the Guardians of the Galaxy ship fixing gun that Rocket has. They don't even talk about it, but it's just like a little spray-on thing that fixes the ship when he sprays it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could talk about this movie for a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure many people will. It's probably the best of the trilogy, the Tom Holland movie trilogy.
Yeah, by far.
Doesn't stand alone, but I think as it's a really great love letter, I think, to fans. The makers of the film really had
to Spider-Man, the character of Spider-Man.
Yeah. They really cared about all the franchises leading up to it.
Yeah.
Which way you can say maybe that's bad, but as a fan, I think it's great. I think this is a fantastic movie.
I think it should win some awards. It should. I know it won't because of the Martin Scorsese view that Hollywood has of Marvel movies. Yeah. I don't know if they've ever won anything, any Grammys, but I think it should at least be in the nomination running for like visual effects, and it should be in there for acting, I suppose. But just like the fact that this is, I feel like the biggest hit of the year as far as movies go.
Right.
I feel like it deserves something in the award category.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit in our discussion of Free Guy, but just that this movie, it proves that, well, number one, people love Spider-Man. Number two, people like recognizable properties. Number three, people love nostalgia. And number four, people want to go to the cinema and have a really good time.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie provides. It does have its moments of weight to it, but more often than not, this movie just cruises along. It's a ton of fun, even though it's long. And really looking forward to watching it again.
Yeah, same here. All right. Nathaniel, do you have any reviews that you've seen from maybe some questionable viewers who may or may not be in the wrong or right state of mind?
Well, so I really like this movie. I'm not sure I quite love it. I had a ton of fun with it, and so did my wife. We went to go see it. We had a lot of fun with it. I'm not sure I rank it quite as good as maybe Iron Man, Avengers, maybe Avengers Infinity War. I think those are really great movies. I'm not sure this hits, but maybe somebody has a different perspective, and this person does have a different perspective. Jamal. Now Jamal, maybe this is a giant troll. You be the judge. Jamal gives this movie 5 stars.
5?
5 stars.
Okay.
5 stars. Best movie ever. Well, I'm not sure I would say that, Jamal, but it's a bold statement. But
he sounds like somebody who might talk in extremes.
Yeah. Only Captain Marvel is better.
Jamal, listen to me. I've seen one. I've not seen the other, and and there's a reason for that.
Captain Marvel is definitely, if we're just talking about in terms of MCU, it's not at the top. It's not at the top half. It's barely in the lower half in terms of it barely rates. Yeah. So anyway, maybe it's a troll, but maybe it's not. Jamal.
Man, that leaves me thinking. I don't know. I can't. It's hard to read.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So what do you got for
my review? I love reading what the top critics have to say about these films that we're looking at. And so,
I guess for me, I'm just more of a man of the people, right?
Fair enough.
I think of you, Seth, as like you should be writing for Rotten Tomatoes, like maybe The Guardian or something like that for movie reviews, and like you represent the sophisticated, the aristocrats. I spend my time with the little people. All right, but what?
Fair enough. Okay, today I have picked out from the top of the crop, Mr. Bilge Ebery. He's a critic for New York Magazine.
Oh, okay.
Vulture. All right, and a top critic for Rotten Tomatoes. His article title was titled "Spider-Man: No Way Home is aggressively mediocre." The Tom Holland Spider-Man films have been so eager to please that one does feel like a bit of a crank criticizing them. Nobody should enjoy kicking puppies. At the same time, along with the off-rebooted Batman, Spider-Man is one of the superhero franchise for which we do have proofs of concept from 4 different approaches. And while the previous Holland films have been mediocre in modest ways, No Way Home feels downright aggressive in its mediocrity, bringing back better actors from better movies and calling them back to an endlessly inventive and moving masterpiece like Spider-Verse. It is an attempt to try and gain...
Okay, all right. Spider-Verse is fine. Maybe it's good. It's also overrated. All right, sorry. Continue.
Okay. It is an attempt to try and gain residual luster from associating with better work. Or is it something more cynical, an attempt to bring that better work under the big tent of its blandness? I don't know any better. I think that No Way Home was trying to make us forget that a better Spider-Man movie is possible. With that ending phrase, Nathaniel, I think you might agree with him.
I do. I do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nathaniel, you maybe should be part of the top.
Yeah, man of the people no more.
You're going to join forces with Mr. Bilge Ebery. All right. I would like to defend the Spider-Verse. When I saw that, I really liked its new approach to art. I think the artistic, the CGI was special in the way that incorporated the comic book with the movie. Yeah. And that I think the directors were the directors of the Lego movie.
Yes.
And I believe that was also kind of a groundbreaking film, the way that they animated that. Yeah. So
they made it, they animated it like it was a stop motion brick film. Yeah.
Right.
Even though it was all computer generated.
Computer generated Legos. That's right. So the fantastic looking films. I thought Spider-Verse was well written. Yeah. I don't know where your contempt is coming from.
I know. I guess I was really excited to watch it. I saw the first 10 minutes of it just as a promo before I actually watched the whole movie. I was super excited for it. And then when I saw it, I was like, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. It doesn't blow me away. It was okay. It was fine. It was okay. Right. I enjoyed it, but honestly, I haven't thought about it almost at all since watching it. So
and to be honest, so this movie also, I was kind of thinking about rewatching it, or in rewatching it. how likely I would be to watch Spider-Man No Way Home again. And I think it has a little bit of this Avengers Endgame feeling for me, where because it's so long, it might be kind of an investment to sit down and watch it. It's not very easy to just sit down and like casual watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
So watchability is, I kind of thought about it. It may not be the best movie for rewatchability.
Especially since the first two movies are very light fare. Very easy to watch,
right?
And very fun, very funny, and the stakes are definitely not nearly as high.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Anyways, extra nugget for the listener.
Yeah. So I'll throw up a poll on Spotify. Which Spider-Man series do you like the most? Andrew Garfield, Sam Raimi, Tom Holland, and let me know what you think is the best. Yeah.
Nathaniel, clearly you like the Sam Raimi films the best.
I do.
I'm not gonna lie. I think I don't like that one the best because Tobey Maguire. I can't get behind him and his baby face. It's so bad. That's all I remember when I think about those films, is his face just scrunching up and crying and tears rolling down his flat blubby face, and then MJ looking at them and wiping them off, and I can't.
But there's a style to those movies though that is so different than like the MCU style and formula that gets fed us, and it's so refreshing, especially to go back and watch. I watched the first one and the second one, part of the third one recently, and it's such a refreshing style for a superhero flick to me, that even if you have some more melodramatic moments that you go, yeah, this is people are crying too much in this film. It works a lot. It works for me a lot more than many of the new fare, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess that's also something that resonates with me a lot. The heart of the original trilogy, which I think is just sticks with me a lot more.
Okay.
But
those are some really good thoughts.
All right, but Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, which is the king for you?
Oh man.
If you say Andrew Garfield, I'm leaving right now. You're doing the outro by yourself.
Nathaniel, being your friend and talking about so many movies, I've come to appreciate good movies, I think, much more, and I can't help but admit that the Andrew Garfield movies are subpar in their execution. I will say that I do enjoy Andrew Garfield's his rendition of Spider-Man quite a bit, but I have to say I think I like Tom Holland the best in the way that he kind of combines best of both worlds, in the way that the actors portray them, in that he kind of has that nerdy, geeky feel, but he's not an adult. He's fun, he's good loving, and I'd say for that reason I think that's probably my favorite. And it's not a decision based off of the film and like you're talking about the heart and the style and stuff. It's more off of just which Spider-Man actor do I prefer. I think that's where I'm drawing my my bias there.
Yeah. I think it also depends. Do you want to have a good time, or do you want to watch a more serious, emotional driven film too? I think that's the question you have to ask whenever you sit down for movie night.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is, I feel like, just a tiny slice of how much you could talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. So I hope you've gotten something out of this conversation, and we hope you'll continue to join us for future conversations as well.
That's right. Hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I have had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This was a crazy movie to see. I felt like it didn't have enough hype, but it was great because I kind of went in with low expectations and paid off. I thought it was a great film. We enjoyed it, and we hope you do too.
Yeah. And so for our podcast, this is Nathaniel.
This is Seth.
And this has been
The Bad Dads.